bear with me with this live stream. I've got to look at this camera here. It's right at the top on the iMac. Okay, so a lot of the time I'm looking down. But what I'm going to try to do is, I know there's an app that allows you to use your iPhone camera. And so maybe with some trickery, I can get it down here and then feed it into the Google system. But what I want to do, excuse me while I look at my face here sometimes, but what I want to do is sort of catch up with those who want to attend and basically try and catch up with some topics that are maybe like a free-for-all chat, basically. That's it. I'll just stop speaking now. Let me just post this on Twitter. Okay, so I tweeted it out. I've got a few things to share. Hi, Mitch. Hi. I was going to do a live stream outside, but I thought, no, this would be a great time to test this before I go to work. Okay, so we've got a couple of topics to talk about. It's nice that there's 8 of you here. I'm going to drop links in the chat. So I'm really excited about this, actually, because it's different to Periscope, where I just tell you something, and then I'm like, hey, guys, look on the phone. I can just drop the links in the chat, and then you can actually view it. Hello, Pete. What I'm not doing is using this microphone. I've just missed a trick. I'm using the microphone on the iMac, but next time I'll plug it in and the sound quality will be so much better. And then we can get rid of some of these plosives. Doesn't matter really because the microphone's somewhere on the iMac. Who cares? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Anyway, it's a test. I'm here. Let's chat. It does feel like it's so long. Thank you for coming. It's nice. It's nice to catch up. But it's not going to be the same as Perry. It's good old Periscope, which supposedly you can still use, I've been told. But there we are. Except you can't. I think it's integrated with the Twitter system. But anyway, I don't care about that. What I do want to talk about first, got my notes here, is the YouTube channel itself. So I've rebranded the channel, and I want to focus on mostly just 2 things. One is, I'll get to that actually, MCBT71. Or what I might also start doing is respond to your comments later rather than interrupt myself with this train of thought, because the comments will just stay here. It's beautiful. It's great. I love it. On the channel from now on, probably on a ratio of 1 to 2, I'll probably do some quick edited zero waste videos because I'm trying to promote the Zero Waste podcast, and then also do the walking tours and the things that you associate me for with regards to Hong Kong, and then some other special videos that I decide when I want to do them. It's not really a rebrand. It's sort of like a statement really to say what the channel is actually about, because before the branding was just a weird picture of Japan, not Hong Kong, but hey, it's representative of, Asian cities. It's kind of racist, maybe, but there we are. Now it actually says what I do or what I want to do on the channel. There we are. Okay, let's drop the first link into. Oh, I can't drop the first link in. Doesn't matter. So I will go to Patreon directly for this because I wrote a Patreon post. Let me just find it here. It is titled Social Media Engagement. And this is something that I want to talk about for a while with social media. And it's part of why I've kind of taken a break. I haven't done any live streams or anything like that. And there's just this weird, when we all first jumped on Periscope, on social media, we all thought that we could be interested in new opinions, meet new people. And I think in the beginning we did want to meet new people, but I think with politics taking over all of our lives, we've sort of coalesced around our tribal groups. Some of us haven't, obviously, and we want to sort of not adhere to a tribe or to a groupthink identity. And I want to keep this light and fun. But recently some things have happened where I just thought there's just like a uselessness to social media, in a sense that you could have a discussion with people and it gets nowhere. And it doesn't matter the topic. people grind themselves into their own entrenched positions and is not getting anything out of it. And on the flip side, if you put something out there, people will reinterpret it and then stick to what their interpretation means to them, rather than if you explain to them what it actually means. They don't care. They find something else. They stick to what they thought originally, and then they move on to something else to find plot holes or plot armor, so to speak, in whatever you're saying. So let me read a bit of this. This is I put out on Patreon. It was just a quick an hour of just unprocessed thoughts. So bear with me on this one. Recently, I've exposed myself to a lot of flack on Twitter, some by accident, some by design. It's been interesting to engage and consider with complete strangers for a few minutes, or with individuals who have been with me for what has been years. Some of you have transferred from Periscope. Obviously, whatever you say to me, because you've stuck around for literally longer than the MCU movies, if you count them all up, you've watched me more than the MCU combined, even 5 times over. So whatever you have to say, I take it a lot seriously. And I've wanted to write something for a while, affirm my thoughts into a piece of text, or just share it, which is what I'm doing now. But it's a bit more loose now. Again, I'm not trying to be pessimistic. If anything, it's going to enable me to do the opposite. As I write here, the flack is reading tweets and getting into threads. Nobody backs down. Nobody is humble. Nobody is ever wrong. Everybody is right, and none of it matters, because anyone can be blocked, muted, and ignored instantly with no recourse. Existing beliefs remain intact. What I'm speaking to there is the fact that you can jump into a thread and you have the information which is correct, and that person can just block you, ignore you, delete their account if it's someone who's being, cancelled. There seems to be no, there's no, not compensation. What's the word I'm thinking of? There's no consequences for most of us. We can just hide away or start a new account. Obviously, if you're famous, then you're high profile and it's harder. But for the rest of us, and for me especially, there's been times where I've been getting into conversations and there's just no result. And I just think, what's the point? Okay? It's been smacked into me repeatedly. There's just no way you can argue something or discuss something where the other person will change their mind. And I've willingly allowed myself to be brigaded, piled on, to see what would happen if I come out with a different point of view. But there we are. I'm not going to get into any specifics. For the value of social media engagement and what that entails, it can mean a few likes and a few comments and a couple of follows. But ultimately, we're a disposable cup. All cups are disposable, whether it's single use or a metallic flask. And then the article goes into the, like I said, high profile people who are being cancelled. But when you read into the happenings of why people are trying to cancel that particular person, we see the fickleness online because someone said one word or committed one wrongful action. We don't really know what happened, and we don't really know that the other person, let me say that again. We don't really know what happened. We don't really know that person other than what we've been allowed ourselves to share online, or what they've allowed themselves to share online. So basically, we're interpreting a facet, even if the facet is as genuine as can be. A lot of people say, Jonathan, you're genuine, you don't hold back. But of course I do. There's loads of things I don't tell you about in my private life. You'll never know. But we only respond to what we think we know, even though I've put out things that seem really obvious and plain or whatever. Now, what I like about the block button, I think for other people. What do you mean, like what? MCBT71? Because you can actually write quite a lot, and I'll see it written there. I think personally, there's therapy with a block button, especially if it's something you see from somebody that you don't like. You can block them, and I feel like in a layman's sort of psychological understanding of it, it's like I get to hurt that person because I've blocked them out of my feed. I mean, a block is useless anyway because you can sign up on multiple accounts, but you're still sort of limited if you actually cared about that person anyway. And it is so easy to just block people. And I don't remember going back to 2008, 2009, 2010, I don't remember people reaching for the block button so easily, but I can put my finger on certain things to certain discussions. Someone asks for something, like say, show us the receipts. You give them the receipts, and they just block you. And it's like, what was the point? What was the point in that? I was joking what you wasn't telling us about your private life. Oh, there's all sorts of gay stuff about my private life. But if you disregard, what did I write here? But if you disregard the idea that, oh wait, no, there's a little bit more. And because we own the block button, there's a little bit of dopamine. It feels good to get rid of that person we think is wrong, or we think might be making us feel like we're wrong. We can just push them to the side. You get to exclude them, and they can't see you now. And I think I've always thought these past few years that I don't think we should have a block button. A mute maybe, but not a block button. None of us should be able to block anybody. Just mute them. I think there's a big difference between two, and we shouldn't get to decide who we can block. But there we are. Now, opinions can be explained, contextualized, and you'd think that would be it, but it never is. There's always a piece of the narrative that is misinterpreted, either willfully on your own or by a third party. Maybe accidentally because attention was lacking. Oh, I didn't see that tweet. And then the algorithm just didn't share the whole piece of the pie to the social justice mob. I'm not going to read it all out, but I basically just want to say I'm pulling back from Twitter. I'm not going to tweet the same things or get into the same conversations as much as I used to. I've taken some knocks this month, and I've just realized it's kind of a fallacy, especially with the technical limitations of Twitter. Even though none of it bothers me anymore, in the sense that people throw the word transphobe, racist, white supremacist, any insults, they don't concern me anymore. What does concern me, or did concern me, was the fact that we can just ignore each other so easily, and yet the fundamental aspect of social media was to try to get involved with one another, meet each other, and learn something. And I don't feel like we're doing that so much. So sharing things that I was probably sharing in the past, I just feel there's no relevancy to it, especially when you check the stats and you see that no one clicks on those particular things. And I've said it before on Periscope. If I share a picture of Hong Kong, I get more engagement on a photo about Hong Kong than I do about something that's, I would say, more relevant, probably something more in your wheelhouse if you're an American, and it's a link about something to do with American politics, or some of the themes that are running around, some of the narratives that are running around in America. Just doesn't get any engagement. So what does that say? My audience isn't interested in that, and they want nice things, basically. And sure, it's nice to know, nice to stay informed and involved, but ultimately, what can we do? Anyway, so that was my Patreon, a bit from my Patreon blog that I mentioned. Let me catch up with the chat. Very busy chat, clearly. Was joking that you wasn't telling us about your private life. Yeah, pretty much said that already. Right, some nice things I want to share with you is, let me just close this link down. And it is a nice thing. And if you haven't watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, maybe not watch this bit if you don't want any spoilers. But at the moment, if you have, remember, spoilers. I think some of us have watched it. Many of us haven't. But the TV show, I thought, was going to be a non-stop sort of buddy cop, similar to Lethal Weapon, lots of action, superheroes kicking the shit out of each other. And instead, what we've got is a sort of thoughtful piece. And when I mean piece, I mean P-I-E-C-E, piece about, who is a hero? What is a hero? What does it take to be a hero? What does it take to represent your country? And while, here's one of my things from my private life, but probably we get taken out of context with a My hand is dry. I've got to keep it lubed. What was I saying? So the idea that, yeah, it is pretty deep. It's deep. It's gone deeper than I would have thought. And initially, I was kind of annoyed by the TV series because it's speaking about American politics. And I just said that on Twitter, I'm not going to share things like that anymore because it's not relevant, really. No one engages with it. And yet now I'm talking about a TV show where that TV show is trying to engage with certain narratives that exist in American culture. But that's my gripe with it. It's the fact that it's to do with American culture. Doesn't speak to things, especially in Hong Kong, doesn't speak to those things that happen here. And a lot of it doesn't speak to probably a British audience. I'm speaking from those two perspectives. And I felt in the beginning that a lot of it was forced, because if you watch the end of Endgame, Captain America gives the shield to Sam. And I thought to myself, oh, well, Sam is now going to be Captain America. I understand why it's not given to the Winter Soldier, to Bucky Barnes. I understand that because, you know, he's got blood on his hands and he wouldn't be a very good representative, even if he has been sort of acquitted. Is that the word? Yeah, acquitted or absolved of his sins for the most part. What with the snap and everything like that. So it's understandable, right? It never entered my mind that Sam's race was a part of that. I never factored it into the equation. I just thought, well, I know Sam. I've seen him around. He's been, he's buddy with Captain America. Why not? Captain America's really old. And I've been sort of told that's kind of the wrong take, but I'm going to stick by it for various reasons. Because on Reddit, I wrote a comment in this thread that basically explores what I've just sort of introduced you to, the idea that, why a black Captain America isn't the solution to the world's problems, and why would Sam want to be Captain America? And I never really thought about it from his point of view in that sense, because as again, I accepted him as being the next one. So I wrote on Reddit, it felt forced. Oh, sorry, I'll reply to the comment that was given to me. This person wrote, I was really happy about the way they dealt with it personally. It didn't feel forced and made sense within the series, which I was so happy about. Okay, so in the TV show, Sam gives the shield away. And then you've got another white guy holding Captain America's shield and doing everything in his name, so to speak. So it's sort of like a numbered jersey in a football team. Who takes the prestigious number 11 for whoever? Who's the next one that gets to hold that number? That's how I've interpreted it. And Bucky is upset that he's given the shield away and Sam should have kept it because it was from Captain America. Now, I've said it felt forced. It felt like a 180 from Endgame and even the first episode, because I think even the first episode was saying that he is the next Captain America. And obviously I speak as a non-American. I have to put that disclaimer out there. Anyway, Snark-Owl writes, I think some of that may be because you're not American. We spend more time thinking about race than a lot of other countries. So it has to be talked about or else it would be weird. I do feel like the banking scene was forced, but there's a scene where Sam, the Falcon, needs to get a loan from the bank, and because they're black, they didn't get the loan. And I thought, okay, again, that doesn't speak to me. I'm not black. I'm never in that situation. I'm not a bank manager, and heck, I've never even applied for a loan as an adult. Excuse me. So I write in reply. At the end of Endgame, I'm like, cool. Sam's the next Captain America. That's what the movie said. Now the series is questioning it, hence the feeling of a forced 180. But I can see now, by the TV show raising the issue of a potential denial, as in they've denied him the ability to become Captain America, and there was another black super soldier who's been sort of sidelined when just after Chris Evans' Captain America dies in the ice. it does get people to talk about it, and maybe they will check themselves, because there are people who are going to say, no, there shouldn't be a black Captain America. But why? What has Sam done to sort of not earn that role? As in, so what are the reasons why they would want to say no? But in my first comment, I don't have to consider it because I've said Sam is because Captain America said so. And I'm wondering, if we consider a black Captain America without the show discussing it, would it be more confident in making the dialogue redundant? So, for example, if you watch Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, you have a black captain. Now, maybe it's because it's the 90s. I was only like 14 or 15. But when I watched Star Trek, I was like, oh, okay. I don't like the uniforms. Or this is fake Trek, because the aesthetics was so different. And the uniforms really put me off. It was just the uniforms. It was never the fact that you had a black guy in charge. And he brought his son on board, you know, a black single parent. All those themes that, again, are relevant more to Americans than to non-Americans. But I grew up watching that show. Never bothered about his race. It's kind of strange because where I grew up, there was only 2 black people in my school. And I remember one time someone shouted the N-word at the girl, because it was a brother and sister, a bigger brother. They shouted the N-word at the sister because they were angry. So they did it out of anger. But it was never said, and she was never bullied other than that, having that one day, that one time, that word thrown at her. And where I lived in the north, like I say, it's like 99% white. So I've never seen white on black racism in real life, okay? Apart from what I've seen on TV. When the guy in Los Angeles got beaten up on the streets, and it was on video footage with the cameras. I can't remember the name of the guy, but I've always seen it on TV. Only on TV, never in real life. Until I came to Hong Kong and then heard it. So I'm wondering if we could watch that show and they didn't have those questions to ask and you just put Sam in as Captain America, would you still have these conversations without making it feel like it was forced to non-Americans? Now, some people can say, well, Captain America is a political show. So the offshoot of a Captain America also has to be political, and it has to be about America. Yes and no, because the first Captain America was about, you know, the super soldier serum. It was about, you know, defeating the Nazis, and it was about making sacrifices. The second Captain America movie was all about the surveillance state, and, you know, we should be careful with ourselves while we go about our daily lives, and be careful about how we're being manipulated. And it involved Hydra, not necessarily really the American government. If it was the American government, it was those that were corrupting it from within, from the basis of being a Hydra agent. So again, it's not really about American politics. And then the third one didn't really feature in America. It was set in Europe. And again, it was about information being manipulated, revenge, falling apart through misinformation, inherent biases. But these are kind of universal themes, and I guess, you know, that's why the Captain America movies aren't overly Americanly political. With American, you know, what's the word? I'm getting tongue-tied now. They aren't overtly filled with American politics and drama or the narratives. It's universals. So when the TV show does it again, that's why I'm thinking, oh, this is kind of forced. But it's not, I guess, for people in America. Anyway, let me continue, because there's some great feedback from people here. So Bluebird Neat 694 replies, I think you need to consider the context of American history a bit. When you look at how black people have been discriminated against and treated by the US government, even after the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act, it does raise a question. Why would a black man want to become the symbol of America? When you look at things like Jim Crow laws, the Tunguski experiment, redlining, the assassination of Fred Hampton, I don't know about Fred Hampton, the multiple cases of unarmed black men being murdered by the police, and so on, it becomes an obvious issue when you ask a black man to represent that society. Your comment of Sam just is because Captain America said so is kind of the whole problem. We expect things to get better just because we make symbolic adjustments without putting any thought into actually fixing the root causes of the issues. So he's kind of looking at my comment in a, I guess he's being pessimistic. But again, I'm not an American, and I feel like that's my get out of jail card for some of this stuff. But again, I find it completely fascinating to discuss, because this is something that's being exported to everybody else in the world. And I think it's important to be cognizant of that. As much as I'm saying this is forced and maybe it shouldn't be like this, we've also got to say, well, what is the perspective of a European person? How do they deal with race? Is it the same thing? If it's not, why not? Instead of exporting this American perspective out into the world and saying, this is how it is here, this is how it is there. And I think that's wrong. Anyway, let's have a look here. Person replies to Bluebird. He says, well said. Also, this show is recognizing everyone's grief about losing Steve, not just Bucky, Sam, and Sharon. The public has grief too for losing a symbol. If Sam picks up the shield without recognizing his grief, well, he wouldn't be the smart, empathetic guy we know. And I feel like he took on that burden in the movie. Don't get me wrong. I feel like he has taken on some of that grief. But I'm kind of in two ways about this. How much grief have we got to communicate, and how much do we add into that grief to make comments about things that, from my perspective, if you just went with it and you dragged people kicking and screaming to the narrative instead of explaining the narrative, would you get a different result? Anyway, let me just add my next comment. I'm aware of American history. I mean, it's pretty hard not to know. I'm also speaking from the perspective of acceptance. Again, as a non-American, it goes both ways with regards to context. Look at my personal history and UK history. And by the way, what I mean by it's not hard, it's pretty hard to not know about American history. It's because a lot of it is exported out into the world. We all get to know about American history. When you consider other countries try to hide their history to a greater degree than the Americans do, that has to be factored in as well. So for a lot of people who say, oh, they don't teach this in American schools, well, I found out about it. I learned about it. So how much of it is actually being hidden, and how much of it is actually being sort of ignored? That's something obviously for Americans to discuss. But a lot of this stuff, I shouldn't have to know, but I do know because it's always interested me. I'll continue. I grew up watching black people on TV in the 90s. Captain Sisko, Geordie LaForge, Trevor McDonald, Moira Stewart, Andy Peters, Oprah Winfrey, Eddie Murphy, Will Smith, Craig Charles, and Danny John Jules. It goes on and on. A lot of those people you might not know, but what I've included here are a lot of obviously Star Trek characters. Eddie Murphy, Oprah Winfrey, one of the most successful talk show hosts in the world. And then you've got Trevor McDonald, Moira Stewart, and Andy Peters, who are kind of localized to the UK. But I grew up around them because they were introducing children's TV shows to me, or they were reading news to me as a child. And I don't want to forget that. So, and then I mentioned the two black kids from my school, who were from Africa, by the way, and how I lived in a mostly native white neighborhood. Nobody other than, because actually they were quite popular kids in our school, apart from that one day where one person said the N-word to that girl. And I still remember her name. Her name was Cara Widobe, but it was Widobe with an N. So it exposed me to African surnames, the ones that don't seem to make much sense in English. But hey, it exposed me to it. So that was great. Now, for me, it isn't about symbols. It's a matter of fact. I accept what's happening in the TV show. As in, you want to give it to a black guy, the shield. Why would I don't have a problem with that. Okay, so I'm not really talking about symbols. I'm talking about the fact that I grew up around things that I've already accepted. Race isn't an issue for me, never has been. But there are people sort of kicking back against what I'm saying. But then again, they're looking at it from their perspective, saying that what I'm talking about are symbols when I'm saying I'm just speaking matter of factly. Anyway, and when you consider, sorry, I'll read this bit just to give more context. For me, it isn't about symbols. It's a matter of fact. And when you consider Obama represented America for 8 years, and black people said it's inspirational for their kids because they can go on television and say, look, one day, son or daughter, you can become president because Obama's done it. I never saw that question of why should Obama not represent America? If anything, he did represent America really well. And we look at him through rose-tinted glasses to say he was a great American president. For the most part, I would agree with it. He certainly was an amazing speaker, and he showed his education. He showed his politeness. He showed a degree of restraint when it came to doing things in the public limelight, as opposed to, the next president, who we all got to know his inner thoughts. And a lot of us sort of lost respect for what it meant to be a president because it was tarnished, and yet it was upheld probably to a higher degree than any time in recent memory by Barack Obama. So you've had someone who's represented America. Let's continue. So this happened obviously between 2008, 2016. Now, I never saw from Black families this idea that, no, this guy shouldn't represent America. Why is he present? Maybe he did. Well done, MCB71. MCBT71, sorry. Yes, Red Dwarf. I never saw that. If those questions were asked, then I would love for you to tell me, were there Black people saying he shouldn't represent America? But there we are. I'm willing to admit that I heard, different things from the wrong people. And I end this by saying, on one final time, as a non-American, these are your problems, your hurdles to get through, not mine. I have to remind myself of this, I guess, constantly. Hence the reason why I said the scenes felt forced. I might be impatient as to what's going on, where I think, and this is my failure, where I think to myself, haven't you had this discussion yet? Haven't you ironed out these problems yet? Why haven't you fixed it yet? Why not? Why not catch up? Who are the retards who are still holding people back based on their fucking skin color, or the way they do their hair, or the way they got their own fucking name that's different to how it was to, I guess, the Christian names, right? Again, I met someone from a very early age. It took one person to give me that outlook, to give me that perspective. And this is in the 90s. I'm 40 now, and I'm not saying, hey, the problem should be fixed, but I feel like it's gone backwards a bit. And at the same time, the TV show are saying things that might sort of make us who are not American feel at a loss as to what's going on. But there we are. Yeah, that's pretty much it with regard to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Other than to say, I don't mind it as a show. I think it's good. Continues the franchise forward. Just a bit slow paced. Don't like the main bad guy. I don't think she's very good. And I expected more action, but we'll see in tomorrow's episode, the last one, to see what happens, and then we'll find out obviously what's in store for the rest of the MCU. Right, I'm gonna take a break. I want to know your thoughts if you have any, and what I will do is I'll get ready for the next thing I want to talk about. If you want to type some stuff, then I'll read it. KL Gao writes, heard there was an airplane from India into Hong Kong brought more COVID cases. Air travel opened already. We've never really had the air travel closed down. Let me just have a look, because I haven't heard anything about this. So you probably know more than me. So the date today is the 22nd. We had one confirmed case yesterday. That's it. And that was imported. So we actually had no native cases in Hong Kong yesterday. On the 20th, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 native cases, but we did have three imported cases. And it does say case 11,697. The patient arrived in Hong Kong from India on April the 4th and was staying at a hotel in North Point, which is just down the road. Okay? Let's have a look here. There's the next case is from the Philippines, an airplane flight from the Philippines. And then there's a second one, a child. In fact, both cases from India are from children who are 2 years old. So that was on the 20th. But on the 19th is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 cases were imported. No, only one native case, but the cases that are imported are from flights from India and the Philippines again. So that's probably what you're talking about. But otherwise, we don't count those cases against us. So the parks are still open. Government facilities are still open. If they're imported and they're quarantined, we don't get extra measures put against us. We're actually fine. And as I've just pointed out, there's in the last, let's go back, it's the 22nd today. Let's count the normal, let's count a week's worth of local cases. So we have to go back to the 15th. 1, 4, 5, 6. Wow, a lot of imported cases. 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 18, 20, 21, 22. That's it. We've had 22 local cases. So it's not that bad, and that's for the last week. That's the update on the word that I can't speak about, because maybe I'll get demonetized for that. Right, let's have a look. The thing I want to recommend. Now, where is it? I've got like Chrome and Safari open and Firefox. Give me a minute here. And I need to check my phone. If you don't watch this live, what's great is that you can just look at the timestamps in the video. Okay, I need to copy this, copy it, and then put it on the iMac. All right, I'm going to drop a link in the chat. longhousepodcast.com. Chat for this. So some of you might not know, but I'm writing a science fiction series based on Star Trek. And one of the things I want to sort of educate myself on, inform myself, as the people on Twitter keep telling me to do, educate yourself, is learn more about Native American First Nation peoples, because I have a character who is actually a descendant of First Nation peoples. And this podcast is from the tribe of the Iroquois people, and it breaks it down in chronological order, and it shares stories in certain episodes, just stories, fables, things like that. Just to, I guess, change things up a bit. You don't want it to be a dry podcast. It's between two brothers who are Canadian, and they are explaining the. Let's have a look here. A podcast dedicated to history, culture, and the tales of the Haudenosaunee, an alliance made up of the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora peoples. They were a North American superpower negotiating with the Dutch, Great Britain, the French Empire, and others. They used tact and diplomacy. They played the game well against the colonial powers. Their centuries-old systems of representative councils leaves a footprint that shapes the current United States. Their empowerment of female leaders sowed the seeds of women's suffrage. Their histories are tragic but proud. Their stories entertaining, but hold morals that people of all ages can relate to. Who are they? They are the people of the Longhouse, and it's about the Iroquois people. And it's fascinating. If you want to learn more about, like Canada, the word Canada, for example, is a word from the Iroquois, which I never realized. It's so simple, Canada, and it looks English, but it's not. It's from this tribe. And there's some highlights would be to talk about how the people perceived themselves in the face of the Westerners who came across. And the other part is there's an episode about hunting. I think it's like episode 7, and it tells you about the hunting techniques and how they lived in a very sophisticated way, whereas our history says they were brutal people. They were hardly intelligent. They didn't know how to look after the land. They were just sort of like an oxymoron to the Westerners. And yet, when you get into the podcast, it explains to a great level of detail how much in tune they were with the land and how they actually did control the land. But if you weren't observant, if you weren't observant enough, it looked like they weren't. So if they were hunting a certain type of bird, which have been wiped out now because the Westerners came and just hunted them all to extinction, what they would do is they would take the youngest of the chicks that weren't able to fly and keep the adults, so the adults could keep the population going. So they were always just continually harvesting, just taking the cream off the top, so to speak. Or the way they hunt deer was fascinating. So you've got the idea today where you have to go around, camouflage, and you shoot them one by one. Whereas they would dress up as deer, and we would find that ridiculous. But that's what they did. But they also figured out that if you chase a deer, you're never going to see it again. So they would start miles away and walk towards them, just enough that the scent would be picked up, and then the deer you're just slowly herding them casually, gently, and they would round them up in like bunches of 100 into a dead end, and then just shoot them with their bows. And it was like, wow, I learned something today. How they did that. It's not the idea that they would just go around on their lonesome and just picking them off one by one, right, and taking that one back to the tribe. They would just cull them in these corralled groups. So that's my recommendation. If you're interested in a good podcast, it's Iroquois History and Legends from longhousepodcast.com. Right. I've been talking for 40 minutes. I'm pretty much going to wrap it up, unless you send me some comments. But if I do this once a month, this is going to be the sort of theme. I'm going to iron it out. I'm going to plug in the better microphone. I'm going to get a better camera as well. Try and record in 1080p or something, because this iMac camera is not very good. And then I'm going to sort of refine what we're going to talk about. Recommend something, channel updates, and talk about something that's maybe a little bit salient to all of us. If you like that, then hopefully it's something to look forward to every month. I only want to do it once a month. I don't want to do it in a way like I did on Periscope, where it was just so casual. You could just fire up a scope and then just chat. And I was always doing it on a weekly basis. I really want to concentrate on the recordings I'm making, whether it's a podcast or an edited YouTube video, and the live streams. The walkabout ones, I don't care about those, in the sense that I don't have to prep as much because I know the city. But for something like this, I want to do some homework and then share. And obviously, we can chat, and we're doing, some facials. Okay? Right. I know there's a lag, so I'll wait for some comments. Otherwise, I'm going to end this at the 45-minute mark. I need to drink something. I haven't spoken this long in a while. I missed the casual scopes, lol. Okay, Paula, well, once a month. I mean, we can get casual in the live stream, of course. We can catch up, but here I want to sit down and focus on just sharing, personal thoughts, and just catch up, ask questions, Q&A basically. Okay, right. Anybody else? Otherwise, we're going to end this stream, and then I'm going to do the timestamps for the replay viewers. Someone recommended some other apps. Again, I'm not going to focus on those apps. I'm going to focus solely on YouTube and Twitter from now on. Okay. Right. If you don't want to make this awkward, leave, because there's 20 seconds left. And I'll see you in another live stream. I'll try and do one tomorrow, actually. Okay? We'll go outside. Cool. Right. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.